Hi, I'm Tamar with Pink Sky Thinking, which is the name that I use for the lived experience consultancy work that I do. And I'm making this video because I was a Zoom participant on the Handforth Parish Council meeting. And yeah, I've had quite a few hits on my site, Pink Sky Thinking site, and yeah, I've had a couple of radio interviews, and I was a bit surprised because obviously during the meeting there were a few people who were quite funny and trolling the meeting, and probably more vocal, and I was someone who was kind of like observing, and and I won't lie, I was there for the entertainment too, but I wasn't interrupting or anything. I wasn't trolling. But then what I realised was actually I used Zoom for work, obviously. I was there under my name, and my name is linked to my site, so hey, there you go. So yeah, for all those people that were kind of hitting up my site and yeah, hopefully getting something Handforth related, and you're not, and it's all related to mental health and lived experience practitioner working, and I was kind of thinking, oh, they're going to be well disappointed, and kind of finding it a little bit funny. And I'd done sort of a video on my mental health activist kind of thing on it, which was just about Handforth, but then about the actual thing. But then I thought, you know what, I should probably put something actually on my site, and it won't be about the you've got video clips on the whole meeting itself, but I thought I'll put something on there that is at least kind of, I'll try and get it to relate to the work that I do, but something on there on Handforth, because otherwise people just like they're you're hitting up my site, and what are you getting? You're not getting what you're looking for, which is a bit of Handforth, so hey. So anyway, like I said, I do stuff as a mental health activist, and I'm a lived experience practitioner, mental health consultant, and you're probably thinking, what the hell is that? Basically, I'm someone with lived experience of a mental health condition. Mine is a complex mental health condition. When you're thinking of mental health activists, you're probably thinking of when you makes you think of, I don't know, charities like Mind or Rethink. What I would say is that I'm probably a bit, there's the MAD movement and the survivor movement, and we're a bit more left field to that. We're a little bit more rooted in activism and action focused, reform based stuff, and kind of structural change. So that's the kind of work that I'm involved in. And bear with me, this does kind of relate to the Handforth council thing. This is kind of why I watch this stuff, because I'm interested in it, because when I do this whole activism type stuff, okay, I'm not normally watching local parish council meetings, but what I do as part of activism is I'm on steering groups, and one thing I'm a little bit notorious for lately is going to board meetings. Board meetings are, NHS board meetings are public meetings, so public, sector meetings you can go to, like your council ones, and you can ask public questions. So as part of my activism, I've gone and asked public questions locally, and I kind of liked it at first. It's like, oh, and then after a bit, I don't think they liked it so much. A bit challenging, really. Anyway, this is what I mean with the Handforth thing, like. This is why I went along, and the members of the public can ask questions, but this is why I kept my mic off, because although like I'll go to other things and yeah, I will ask a question, but for this one I was like, yeah, I'm not from Handforth and this is not my circus or my monkeys, you know, I will keep my mouth in check and kind of like I'll be there as an observer. So you know, I'll watch the circus, but I won't, you know, take up space where that's not needed. So yeah, so that was kind of where it was coming from. So anyway, do you know what? I actually wrote some notes because I thought I'll try and keep myself on track a little bit here. So yeah, I've kind of mentioned a little bit what lived experience practitioners are. So in mental health, so you've got your mental health services sector staff. What you will find is that people that work within mental health, probably about up to, their estimates, we don't actually know, but probably around 75% of people, rough estimates, that work in mental health have got you know, some sort of lived experience, whether that's a diagnosis, some form of mental health condition, you know, whatever really. So when you go to see your you know, your psychiatrist or your psychologist, you know, yeah. The thing with lived experience practitioners, we are just a bit more honest about it. We openly work from that from that lens. So you know, we're open about having that lived experience, and but also we work openly from an experiential lens. So other people that work within mental health services will be working from models that don't work from an experiential lens, so they'll be working from a different way. Honestly, I will bring this back to Handforth, promise. So oh yeah, and I will just say, with that 75%, that does include people who whose family or friends may have mental health conditions. So your psychiatrist or psychologist may not be, you know, like tapped like us, you know, LXP mentors are. Yeah, I can say that because I'm part of the MAD movement, you know. Anyway, yeah, where am I? So, why was I interested in, you know, watching this Zoom thing? So, apart from, you know, I've mentioned about the board meetings and stuff, you know, yeah, that's kind of why I'm interested on that side. But also, part of the training that I've done, so I've got a master's in personality disorder, but I did that from a lived experience lens, and part of that is part of the training was actually doing like observational work. So for some of the for some of that training, I tell you what, honestly, like, you know, I was sat in a bar and I'd be like, what, people watching people, making little notes, like you know, kind of just listening. And it's really interesting, and we did stuff like group theory and all this kind of shit. So anyway, it was very interesting going to this like 3-hour meeting, and the thing is, it wasn't boring at all. Like, the whole meeting was fascinating, and you know, kind of like, wow, you know, it was fascinating. It was like this little, watching this little ecosystem that had I mean, this little ecosystem we'd seen in previous videos, and it was now being invaded by all these outsiders coming in and, you know, kind of playing Benny Hill theme tunes, or kind of, you know, Susan Moore was trying to say something and then people going, mic drop, yes queen, or, you know, sort of booing what's his name, Brian Tolver, or you know, just adding sound effects or kind of talking over or messing things up. And it was just really interesting watching it and watching the dynamics change and what have you. So anyway, a little bit more about kind of like group theory and stuff, steering groups. So where am I? Yeah, lived experience practitioners. So what you'll find is that a lot of people with lived experience of mental health conditions get kind of pulled onto steering groups because, for designing, for lots of things to do with mental health, basically, whether it's kind of designing services or, I don't know, to do with how a service is run, or some of the things are really boring, some of them are interesting, whatever. But a lot of the time, people are kind of dragged into sort of rubber stamp stuff. Sometimes it's done to, and there's some real meaning behind it. But yeah, anyway, bear with me because I'm bringing this back to Handforth Parish Council, kind of just because I thought there's some real learning between the two. So steering groups, how we can learn a little bit about steering groups from what am I chatting about? Group theory stuff. So what's really interesting, Handforth Parish Council. So Handforth is in Cheshire. Cheshire is kind of like, at the middle of the country-ish, kind of below, just below like Manchester-ish, kind of. So I'm in Birmingham. It's between like Birmingham and Manchester-ish. Ish, everything's ish. And so you come down ish to Birmingham. Now down the road from where I live, ish, is what used to be Rubery Hill Hospital Asylum, and that was where someone called Alfred Bion used to work, and he was the I don't know, granddaddy, the father, the don of group theory. So what he did was he worked with like soldiers that came back from World War One. I think people got shell shock, and he kind of worked with them, and he developed like group theory and kind of how people interact with each other, blah 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 blah. And what's really interesting is often how it's interesting how when groups get together, people end up in the same. You can get lots of different groups and people will inhabit the same roles. So you've got your leader, you've got your scapegoat, you've got people in their little pairings and stuff. And Handforth Parish Council is just kind of the same, really. You've got you've got Jackie Weaver. Well, there's this whole thing about having a charismatic leader, and then the leader goes away, and everyone mourns for this leader that is like, if the leader was there, then everything would be fine. And this is kind of what you've seen with the whole Jackie Weaver thing going away. And there's something else as well. You've got like these pairings and people together, and it's the idea that people come together and they're in these little pairings and they work together, and they I suppose they metaphorically all of these kind of I'll tell you what, these psychotherapists and they're all kind of, and what's his name, Freud, what have you, they're all obsessed with sex. So the idea of these pairings, they get together, have little babies, and work babies or what have you. So you got these pairings. Where am I leading to with this? So you've got, what was interesting, we had a couple of the councillors that weren't there. Isn't it interesting that these are a couple of councillors that would back each other up? So I think there was the mayor and there was the kind of Gollamy character. I can't remember his name. You know who I mean. And there was the other guy, the one on Alad's iPad, and I'm not sure if they were father and son or something. But anyway, that's a little bit more than a pairing. But these are people who kind of like sort of back each other up, and maybe were a little bit embarrassed from the whole thing that has blown up. But it's interesting that they all kind of went there. And what else? The other thing is that you can see pairings amongst other people too, and you'll just notice that when you look at any group. And then of course you have the group scapegoat. So there's always different positions for scapegoats and leaders, and they can change places. They don't have to be the same all the time. So you know, Brian, he kind of he'd moved into a bit of a scapegoat position, I think. Jackie Weaver had gone, she was mixing from being kind of scapegoat to leader to, you know, she was kind of switching between the two in that other one. So it's really interesting kind of how you can apply group theory to stuff like this, and just it's fascinating. It really is. If there's any bloody group analysts watching this, they'll probably be going, Tamar, you're chatting rubbish. Whatever, you know, reading Beyond is like reading syrup. So, you know, I'm trying to paraphrase, put it into layperson's language. And also it was a few years since I read it, to be fair. So, a couple of years, yeah. Anyway, moving on, swiftly on, trying to dig myself out of a hole there. The other thing that's interesting about group theory stuff is that often people, when people get together in groups, so like this group meeting, what people end up talking about, or what they're talking about is not what they're talking about. So that meeting was not what the meeting was about, if this makes sense. So bear with me on this one. You know, when they were chatting about things like the those planning applications, now none of those really got sorted, did they? Do you think they really cared about those planning applications? Was that really what was... Think about all that unsaid stuff that's going on. It was, that meeting isn't really about that, is it? You know, there was, you know, from some of the things that are going on beforehand, you know that there's beef, you know that there's a lot of stuff about councillors who are who've not been there, councillors who've been suspended, the councillor who'd not turned up, the guy was the mayor who potentially was going to get voted out. There's all this kind of undercurrents going on, which you know, they've got work to do. They've got work to look at in terms of these planning applications. Also, you know, these agenda minutes to decide. The bus, I'll come on to that in a bit. The bus and the, what's the other thing? There was something else. The bus. I think I made a thing. Oh, bus. Something to the car park as well. Yeah. So there were things that they actually had to do in this meeting, but you know, that wasn't what the meeting, that was what the meeting was about, but that was not what the communication was about. And because they hadn't sorted that communication, they couldn't have that meeting. They couldn't even bear to start thinking about what that meeting was about, because that stuff was like this invisible wall that stopped that from happening. So that was really fascinating, and it took me back to because this is something that I love. It's that fascinates me, that you know, as a lived experience practitioner, organisational consultancy, development, team working, all this kind of stuff, I find fascinating. I really like kind of working with people, you know, sort of looking at problem solving and, you know, kind of trying to understand things that are going on and why they happen, and what can be, you know, what solutions can come from the inside. And oh my goodness, though, can you imagine working with Handforth? Oh my goodness me. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, there's all that stuff that is going on. And oh yeah. So this, yeah, that's my other little note. So this was the thing that the problem was that they've got all this stuff, but they've got work to do, and they're supposed to be representing people of that parish within that meeting. So where are the people that they are supposed to be representing within that meeting? Like, where are they? They've been forgotten. They're not there. So that planning application, you know, that poor sod who had the there was someone who had the wrong number on their planning application. I don't know whose fault that was. I don't know if it was the councillors. I don't know if it was the person who sent it. I don't know what it was. But basically, I mean, come on, a wrong number on something. I mean, that if you're getting building work done, it's really stressful. It's really, you know, you don't want it turned down, or, you know, having to worry about it because of a wrong number on it, the application, or something ridiculous like that. So you think, well, really, guys, could you not have, you know, sorted this? Could you not? Is there not something you can do to really help that, you know, that your parishioners will really appreciate? Because I know, oh, excuse me, oh my goodness, so I'm sat in my little she shed, and I've put my I put my legs up on a on a seat in front of me, and basically I've got cramp. Ow. Yeah, hang on, let me just, yeah, okay. So yeah, where am I? So basically that poor old sod, and you know, these meetings are just not getting together. So how long has that person had to wait for that application to, you know, for a meeting to be held for that application? How long would they have to wait till they have another meeting? You know, if that was me, I'd be fuming. So yeah, and also the other thing I was thinking was that while I was there, and they've got this bit for public questions, and I didn't notice, from what I can remember anyway, I mean, there was a lot of banter going on, and I was at first I thought that people were asking actual questions about Handforth, you know, stuff, and then I realised I don't think there were any actual public questions from Handforth about anything to do with Handforth. So where were these people? You know, even though it'd been all over the telly and stuff, where was the public interest, and why were they so disconnected from their councillors? And, you know, were they not, had nobody given any questions beforehand, or, you know, why weren't they there? Or you know, maybe it's because people like me have got a Zoom ticket. But, you know, seriously, I mean, people can you know, could have emailed in and got a Zoom thing just like I did, or, you know, sent in a question. So why, there's a disconnect there, so why is that happening? What's going on? And oh, what else? So yeah, so this had got me got me thinking. So there's all this stuff that you can get from this Handforth meeting, and what I was trying to do is extract the learning from that, because we can, I mean, yeah, we can sit there and take the piss all day long. You know, go, oh, it's funny, and all the rest of it, but there is stuff you can learn from it. And so what I'm trying to do in this video is to take that learning and show, actually, how can I apply this to work that I'm doing, or apply this to work within the kind of lived experience practitioner working realm. Because, you know, lots of us sit on these steering groups, and yeah, so where am I? So yeah, part of that, when I'm sitting on a steering group, sometimes people will expect me, they'll say to me, so Tamar, what do you know, what do service users think? You know, what do people with lived experience think? And I'm like, well, I can tell you what I think. I can't tell you what all lived experience people with you know, some form of mental health issues think. Just like if you had a steering group and you had somebody from the LGBT community, or if you had someone from a Black and or Asian community, and you asked them, what do people from your community think? You know, because you're from that community, you can't expect someone to give their opinion and have it cover the whole of that opinion to cover the whole of the community, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I do as part of the work that I do is to try and keep connected with the range of opinion that is within the MAD movement, Survivor movement, and that can be from things that I completely agree with to things that I don't agree with whatsoever. So when I go to these things, I will kind of I will have an idea of what the range is from what I agree with to what I completely don't agree with. I'll have an idea of the literature that's been written within the MAD movement. I'll have an idea of the wider context, if this makes sense, and stuff that's going on. And what I'll try and do within that is to sort of knit that stuff together and knit that together with what's going on in the steering group, so that if you have to make decisions, there's quite a few things that are taken into account. And the point is that if you're part of making decisions, you then have to be transparent, so that if you go back to that to a community that you are representing, you have to be able to say, well, actually, I was able to take this range through to the steering committee, and this is so we've looked at this range, and this is why we've decided X or Y or Z. You know, you have to be able to do that. Now, what I didn't see from the Handforth, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see anything to do with, like, you know, this is what the people think, kind of thing. I think the closest I saw to that was no, I mean that's a bit mean. The closest I saw to that was Cynthia did bring that back. I think John did, and also Sue did. So I noticed that with them. But what I would say is that the conversation often got pulled away from people. So generally it was away from that completely. And yeah, it was just it was not good. But it's really easy to do that within meetings and just kind of get completely taken away from that. So the other thing as well is that when you sit on these meetings, it's really easy. There's so much politics that goes on. It's fascinating, you know. When I've gone to some of these meetings where I've had an agenda, I've gone prepped and like, I'm going to ask this question and blah blah blah, and I've sat there and I haven't been to any of these meetings for a while, but what I did was when I used to go to them, the public questions were right at the beginning, and I'd ask the question, so I could leave straight after, but I'd stay for the rest of it, so that, you know, for the public bit, because I think, well, it's, you know, it's interesting. But I tell you what, it's fascinating watching, because you get to see the politics of stuff, and you get to, you know, all that stuff I was chatting about with like the people watching, the pairings, the scapegoat, the leader, and you watch people batting stuff around and what have you. Handforth, although I have never ever seen anything like Handforth. Handforth is like anything I've ever seen, but on speed. It's like like, you know, like the Vicar of Dibley or something would do it and have it as that's a comedy version, you know. I mean, honestly, I've been in some meetings, not particularly actually the board meetings. It's probably more other meetings that I may have been in, but my goodness, the Handforth, wow. Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, when things get political tensions, and also there's that thing, and you will know this if you know, like when you're working and stuff, beef, ending up arguing, and you know the stuff that's going on. It's not about what's going on in the room. It's not about the time that meeting is at. It's not about the milk rota. It's not about those little niggly things people are arguing about. It's not about that. It's about something else, and people are pissed off with each other. You know, there's undercurrents, and you have to get underneath to understand what those are first. Yes, so before I finish, the other thing that I wanted to come on to was, so I've mentioned about the people. Where were the people? And I was thinking about the money side and how money, there's the bus versus the car park I've put here, and thinking about people's priorities. So it was one thing that kind of like my jaw dropped, and I was so shocked because that Handforth has got one bus, like one bus. I mean, you know, I'm kind of in Wheelie Castle in Birmingham, and there's a little square, and you know, this is a few buses going from the square, but Handforth must be tiny to only have one bus. So the one bus they have is, I think it costs 120 grand to run. They'd sent something out with the agenda. You know, like you get your agenda and you get all your boring info stuff that goes with the meeting. So they'd sent all that out with all the budget stuff. You know, all the things that make you want to weep when you've got these kind of meetings, and it's like, oh crap, I've got to read through it. Now obviously Brian couldn't really be asked to read through it because he hadn't read it, and he was like, well, I've got to read through it before I agree with it, you know. I need to have a look through properly. Well, like, they just needed to agree that 10 grand would be spent to save this bus service, and it was the only bus service. It's like, it was a no-brainer. It couldn't not be agreed. It had to be agreed. You cannot leave, you know, the people of Handforth with no bus. You can't do it, you know. Like, Brian, you can't you know, what you're going to do, you're going to give everyone a lift in your car. And that's the thing, like, Brian, is this because you have a car and you don't need a bus, so you don't really see it as important? And this is, again, is the thing. It's like, well, are you, like, Brian, how close are you to your parishioners? I mean, you might spend a lot of time yourself on doing this work, but how much do you engage with people who, for instance, use that bus and could not cope without it? You seem to be very focused on I don't know, there was something about a car park and arguments over how much Handforth is spending on it and how many car parking spaces they got for it. So I'm guessing that Brian drove, and he probably wanted his car parking space. That's probably more you know, important to him than this bus. So anyway, it's just interesting about different priorities. So fortunately, the other councillors talked him round into just agreeing to that, you know, 10 grand being spent on the bus, and he saw sense. Yeah, so it's things like this. It's things where I mean, there was something about the whole meeting where there were things where the things like where the trying to think, it begins with a P. What's the word? So you've got your agenda, you've got your process, that's it, meeting processes, you've got your policies, procedures, processes, agenda. It was all the kind of the admin and the red tape, and all of this was much more important than the actual content and the actual sort of getting something done and what was supposed to be done for Handforth. And when you think about it, it's this little parish council, probably volunteers, you know, and making it so officious and so red tapey and so you know, it just ended up, it kind of it became like a bondage, like, you know, it's so bound up. I don't mean like bondage like kind of fetish BDSM, you know, whatever keeps them, whatever they want to do in their private life, that's fine. But what I mean is that they were so constrained that they, you know, they couldn't get anything done. So yeah, they'd have been better off almost, you know, sat around in a circle, seemingly being really unprofessional and really, or I say unprofessional, but seemingly being very relaxed and very, you know, kind of organic, but getting on with it and getting the work done, you know, because that's what people need. So, you know, sometimes you can put on a show about, you know, getting things, you know, about being professional or, you know, doing things properly, but you're not, you know, if you're not doing what's needed, there's no point. So yeah, anyway, I found the whole thing fascinating. I could go on and on and on, as you can probably notice. I can chat for England when I finally get going, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is I've tried to somehow fuse together Handforth Parish Council meeting, lived experience practitioner working, and yeah, and those two things basically, and you know, kind of mental health activism and the kind of work that I do and stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, enjoy more Handforth, because I know that I will be enjoying it in the future as well. I doubt I'll get another invite on there, but yeah, I'll be watching in the background. So take care.